Okay, seems live. Oh my gosh, how are we gonna do this today?
I don't know. You're gonna speak up.
I'm gonna have to lean over like this. It's gonna be crazy times.
We were supposed to have someone.
Yeah, we had a guest, but they did that thing that guests do where they say, "Yeah, I'd love to be on the show," and then they absolutely wouldn't love to be on the show.
Well, then you get the okay and send the invite, and then they're like, "Oh, but
Oh,
can we
and
do it another time? Like, can we do the live show that airs at 10 another time?"
They say yes and then want to do it. So
No. So welcome to the Backpack Show, where we have no guest today.
No guest. I'm sure we'll figure something out.
Hi, everyone. Tim Kitzer from NBA Jam and NFL Blitz, welcoming you to The Backpack Show. Your hosts, Chris Brogan, Kerry Gargone, Boom Shakalaka.
Backpack Show.
Well, this is going to be a day.
So I like moved, and everything's at 6s and 7s over there. So I don't know when I'll be like properly set up to do stuff. So that's the conundrum.
Is that the conundrum?
Yes. So what's our setup over there? If you want to come over and do it over there, you can do it over there.
I mean, we could do this weird thing called I'd host here and you host there and whatever, but
I'd be thrilled. Let's do that. I'll go do that right now.
Ready, go. I'll see you over there.
My kid has a way better setup than me. I feel like it's table stakes now to have like a pretty decent setup for your
Hey, it's
stuff.
Engineer's voice. Hello, India. How are you? It must be, what time is it over there? It's nighttime.
Maybe it's somebody you met when you were in India.
I didn't meet Engineer's voice.
How do you know?
Oh.
Maybe that's their nom de plume.
That could be. Yeah, so we're going to do an episode of the Backpack Show kind of about nothing. We'll have some topics, I'm sure.
Yeah. Are you working on a new book?
I am working on a new book. I took this week off because I was going to get working on that book, and then I was sick the whole week. So I had possibly strep throat.
Oof. That sounds not fun.
It's so much fun when you're both together. That is true. We are, there's a little more shenanigans happen when we are side by side than at a distance.
Totally.
I could push her, that kind of thing.
It presents a logistical challenge, as you can see, because we're still trying to find like a good spot.
And one other challenge that's happening, and it is, you can see it's different today, right? So the sun that comes through my windows naturally blazes down all of a sudden. It looks like the face of God in the shower.
I just felt like you should fix it.
You said let's try another angle, and I was like, okay, let's do it 6 minutes before the show. Okay. So
fussy.
Yeah.
So sick the whole week, so you didn't write a thing.
I wrote a couple small essays for LinkedIn, but I didn't write on my book. The idea of the book is it's a chief of staff book because I went looking to see if there were any business chief of staff books. There weren't. I'm reading a book right now called The Gatekeepers about the U.S. President Chiefs of Staff. And what was interesting about that book so far, I'm only like a few chapters in. What's interesting so far is how much power a chief of staff has in government. I had no idea. Like they're the ones who go and like acquire the vote, and they're the ones who manage the budget of the White House, not the country's budget, but like make sure that everybody inside gets paid, inside the organization, and a bunch of other details. And I was just like, oh, and they're sometimes considered on par of power with the actual president of the United States. And I was like, oh, well, that's not like how a corporate chief of staff works. But then again, the other side of it was that what I was learning was that there's this whole other kind of chief of staff, which is more like a startup chief of staff. And what they really mean is person wearing a lot of hats. It's not the same role that I do. So now I'm like, I'm going to have to take at least the first handful of pages of this new book and say like, it's not this or that, it's this. And then people will go, oh, okay.
Yeah, it's a little weird. Like you'll see sometimes on LinkedIn, people will be like, I'm chief of staff. And then you look at what they're doing and it's like, I order paper.
Right.
And like, that's important and stuff, but it's not what I think of when I think of chief of staff. So you are going to have to explain it, I guess, like which kind of thing you're going for. How obviously not that far in, but how far into outlining are you?
I've got about a third to almost a half of it outlined. And because what I'm trying to go through is I was like, well, all right, why write this book at all? So the reason to write the book at all is I was writing a book about a role that I think more companies will adopt. And the reason I think they'll adopt it, that's the whole if there's any real like theme for why the book exists, it's because one thing kind of missing in executive leadership in corporate America, at least, could be the world. One thing that's missing in corporate life is this, the CEO sort of feels like a lonely hunter. They feel like this person out on their own, and they don't really know, they don't always have somebody to bounce stuff off. Well, there is no role that's officially supposed to be the bounce stuff off role. And there's a lot of reasons why not to make your chief operating officer or whatever. So one way that companies have been doing this is what they're calling co-CEO, but I'm not supportive of the title. What do you think when you think about a co-CEO?
Like they couldn't make a decision
Right.
about who should be CEO.
Right. And so I think that what a chief of staff gets to be is I get to help be a sounding board and a strategic advisor without taking away from the strength and the duties of a CEO. That's what I'm guessing.
Well, and then any idea you put out there that the CEO then adopts becomes the CEO's idea. Whereas if you were co-CEO, it would be like our idea, which would be not as powerful.
Yeah.
I feel for either of you. Like,
but the other reason I want to write the book is because I've learned a lot of skills from this role too. Like I didn't know what I was getting into. The boss said, "That's a title." And I said, "How do I do it?" He goes, "I don't know, go watch The West Wing." And I did. And so I didn't read, I got it wrong. I thought I was supposed to be Rob Lowe. That joke only works if you watch The West Wing, which is a rather old series. By now.
Yeah, but everything old is new again because streaming.
That's true. Streaming. So anyway.
So your material will become current again.
One of these days I'll be funny. So I don't know. I think that I think there's some benefit to a book like this. At least that's why I'm bothering to write it, which is to say that I learn a lot about other people's roles doing this role. A lot of times I get to say, oh, maybe what you think is important in your role isn't the thing you should focus on. Maybe it's this other thing. And I think that I can help a lot of other people in a lot of different corporate roles think differently about what they're doing and kind of how their contribution stacks. Because it's not what we think. That's the challenge, I think. It's not what we think.
But you're not allowed to talk out of school. So how are you going to write this book based on your experience as chief of staff without talking out of school?
Yeah.
Without getting in trouble or without getting meeting requests from people in other parts of the company.
Well, so first I can't
I
can't give specifics that align to the company too much. Like I'm going to have to really temper that. So one idea I had was I'll interview a whole bunch of chiefs of staff, from other corporations. I have a few interesting ones too from not the same role as me for sure. Arnold Schwarzenegger's chief of staff and I are connected. So I'm going to also try to get a few former U.S. president chiefs of staff. Again, even though that's not what the role entails, but there's a lot of things you can learn.
It's just cool.
Yeah, why not? And so I thought that would be fun. And then I also thought it would just be kind of fun to talk to a bunch of CEOs and say, if you were to hire a chief of staff, what would you do with it? And that way I can get that feedback going in the book as well. So that's the book. And then I don't know, who knows? So I didn't
So
get
when are you thinking that it will be done-ish?
Once I really get started writing, it's a 3 or 4 month process at the most to get the book finished. It is so fast to write a book for me now, at least the draft. And Helena Boucher gets a lot of credit for that because she really helped me get a new speed set up because she's
a developmental editor.
Sorry. She definitely gave me the skill to say, you can, look at who showed up.
Your biological father.
Hey, there you are, Dad. I sent you a text, but I guess I should have sent you a link.
Any chance of getting a forward from Aaron Sorkin?
Oh my gosh, if I get a chance to in any way connect. Hi, Mom, and connect with Aaron Sorkin, I would. Hi, Jane. Helena showed me how to write a little bit faster. She gave me permission to do something where you've heard a million times, but I've never been that guy, which is just really get the stuff out there first and then go back and look at it. I'm not that kind of writer. I like to write as if I'm writing the final draft.
Do you edit as you go?
I edit as I go, which is the terrible way to write a book.
I do it too, but I don't write books. So.
Yeah, it's tricky.
And I guess ebooks.
So you did your move this week. How did that go?
Great. well past the point where I'm going to move any stuff myself. I was like, nope. So the place is like, has like 33 steps because I counted to get from the first floor to where we are. And there was a lot of things. So lucky for me, when you buy new things, people come and bring them. So that was good. And then when you want your own things, you can pay people to bring those too. So I did that. So I'm going to be broke for a while, but it's totally worth it.
Yeah.
So it's fine. It's like now you're at the point where I'm like, I have a pizza cutter and a corkscrew, which means I'm really settled in. Like,
yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
I don't think I have a pizza cutter.
You just eat the whole pizza, like
Probably have a corkscrew.
you just fold it,
Right.
stuff it in your mouth like a great big New York slice.
Yeah.
Okay.
If I make pizzas at home, I don't make a lot of pizzas. I make a lot of soft tacos.
I have a teenager, so
Yeah, pizza.
Pizzas at home.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's fine. It's a lot.
Small town Massachusetts living. What do you think?
It's not unfamiliar. I grew up in Massachusetts
What?
in a smaller town than this, so it's about the same.
A little less ocean.
A little less ocean.
Oh, well, the ocean's 2 miles away, but it's not right there.
I have no reason to be late. You know what? You haven't missed anything. So.
Dean, we were just clearing out there. If you have those two things, you're all set.
Right? That means you're like pretty settled. If you got a corkscrew and a pizza cutter, like everything else is taken care of, like beds and desks and couches and carpets and all that. So we're good.
Leslie, by the way, just finished tapping a whole bunch of maple trees and made her first more than 1 gallon of maple syrup.
Holy mother of God.
Which
What do you do with that much maple syrup?
That's 40 something gallons of sap.
You're like dealing maple syrup, I hope, because you're not going to use all that yourself, right? Like if
I
those
mean,
are drugs, you'd be in trouble.
You could, that might last one person a year. 1
That's
gallon.
a lot.
If you had a lot of pancakes.
If you're like really into waffles.
Yeah. Once a week, maybe. I don't know.
We had the people on the show from Passamaquoddy Maple, the
That's right.
First Nation maple sugar people, and they had maple sugar batter, like mix that you could make your pancakes with. So they would taste like maple before the syrup ever touched them.
Wow.
I'm just saying.
All right. Well, Leslie, learn how to make powder mix something. Passamaquoddy.
They would take the sugar, maple sugar.
Oh, distill the sugar.
And add it to
That makes sense.
I mean, if you have a gallon of maple syrup, I feel like you have a little play with, so you could experiment. I don't know.
Yes, it is for sharing. I am currently boiling even more sap as I watch the show. That's so cool. Congrats, Leslie. That's
You're
really
gonna
cool.
need some maple syrup.
Maple syrup. Yeah, it'll go with my blueberry something vodka or whatever it was over
Are you
there.
looking over there?
I don't know.
Why do you keep it by the bed?
It's not that kind of a show. It's not Backpack After Dark. I can't tell people why I have Leslie's food products by my bed.
This is like a studio, right? That's what they call it. So like everything is fully in view.
Yeah, it's not. It's cleanish right today, but it's not clean enough. I'd want to give it to her. I don't think, but
mine is pretty good because it's like we just got there.
You just got there.
It can't be that bad. But yeah,
I wonder how much modern moving is just removing all the Amazon boxes. Is that?
Oh my God, so much. Actually, so TaskRabbit is this thing. If you haven't used it, I recommend it. But for people, you get people like basically like freelance handymen or like assistants or cleaners, and say stuff like, hey, I have like 57 Amazon boxes that I need brought from like a first floor up to a third floor. Can you help me out? Because it'd be like 10 trips for me. And they'll come over and do it. It's great. So I actually did that. And I still took a day to rip open all the boxes and like unpack the things and like wash the dishes. And like, it's a process. I'm not suggesting it's sexy or fun, but it's whatever. It's necessary. I'm not writing a book about moving. Like you're writing about chief of staff.
No.
Nobody's writing a book about moving. I'm pretty good. My first week was about 90 gallons of sap for 2 gallons of syrup. Holy mackerel.
Oh, wow.
I have about 50-ish more gallons right now. We'll send you each one of the finished product. Yes, please. Actually, you should send 2 to him because apparently he needs to keep some by his bed. I don't know. I will ask no questions about it.
My bed syrup.
You know what is funny? Being in a small New England town that has like quirky shops and things, I saw a piece of art very like the piece that's usually behind you on the show but it was like $4,000.
Oh my god!
And I know for a fact that came off Etsy for
I
like
did not pay for
a lot less than that. Yeah.
100 or like a couple hundred.
It's kind of funny. So yeah, I'm learning lessons left and right over here. Do you have like a favorite spot to write around here? Like
in the town?
Well, I mean, in your place, I guess, but yeah, in the town.
No, in my place, I just write wherever I'm sitting, so the desk or whatever.
So you don't have like a favorite spot.
Duly noted. In the house, no. I guess I can.
Leslie, you should bottle a boudoir bottle of maple syrup.
Boudoir syrup. There's a brand.
Anyway, I don't know. Like some people have like, okay, so in the new place, I have like windows that kind of jut out. And so you get a really good view of Main Street. And I thought that would be a cool spot for like a dinette. And so that's one of my favorite spots to sit there because I can just kind of like watch people from above and they have no idea.
So right over my seat or Kerry's seat, there's a little round table. It is a kitchen table. I guess it's my dining room / kitchen. It's all one
really
room.
Cool table. It's like
here.
Industrial.
We're going for a tour.
No.
Oh, I am gonna hook something.
Break everything.
I'm gonna break everything. All right, look. So here's a little table. I could write over here. Here's a little guest desk area. I could write there. Here's my desk area. I could write there. And here's the throne where I have more interesting conversations about work. And I could write there. Can't exactly write in my bed. So there's a few spots. There, does that look like the backpack show?
I don't know. Close enough.
Close enough.
I'll move it. I'll move it for you here. We'll put it right up front. There you go. Now maybe they'll be able to hear you.
So
no favorite
the
spot.
coffee shop across the street from you. Oh, the Morning Buzz probably evening.
Oh, fun.
Yeah.
So there's a few good spots in my place, but now I'm not sure. I tend to just do work in my room because I have a teenager, and so at night when they are awake, because that's when they're awake, they are loud because they're gaming and streaming and stuff. So long story short, my office went in the bedroom because landlord's bedroom's right downstairs. So can't have that kind of noise overnight. And my meetings are much more sedate. So that's like my work spot, but my favorite spot is the dinette.
Which maybe the next episode of the Backpack Show you can from there you could show from the dinette and show it off and be like, hey,
I don't know.
So
but I'm more productive in my room.
But one thing I do a lot is I head up the highway about 20 minutes to the Barnes and Noble, and I work out of their cafe. And one reason I do that is because then I'm not as motivated to go do other things. I'm in public, I try to, honor the writing time and all that, but I don't feel there's two different types of writers. I think there are people that are dragged through the process. And then I think there are people who just write, and I'm pretty writable.
Anne Hamley always says that writing is like giving birth to a Volkswagen.
Huh.
So she's definitely that type that gets dragged through it. Yeah. Or the kind that will like bake bread instead of writing when on deadline, because it's like anything else seems more fun to do.
Speaking about writing in general too, this is a book by Haruki Murakami called Novelist as a Vocation. I like to write. I like to read books by writers about writing. And I put a couple of the quotes in, I circled them in the book because I liked them so much. One of them, for instance, he has a whole essay about, should you be a novelist or whatever. So for instance, he says, writers are basically an egoistic breed, proud and highly competitive.
Ouch.
Except that they also tend to, he says, they tend to support other writers. So for instance, he says, from where I stand, the statement, anyone can write a novel, is not slander, but praise. I thought that was kind of cool.
I guess so. I don't know if it's true though. I don't know that all writers support other writers, because all people don't support, all women don't support women. And I don't know.
Right.
It's probably not true. I remember one romance novelist that I saw at a Manic Mommies retreat years ago say that something happened where like reviews used to be anonymous or blind or something, like you couldn't see who posted them. And something happened behind the scenes where all of a sudden they were all unblinded. And so she saw a bunch of her fellow writers just like slamming her books to be dicks. And it really put her off like participating in the writers community for a while. So
there's a lot of good quotes in this, even if you're not going to be a novelist. So for instance, Murakami gets picked on a lot. One of the criticisms they give about Murakami is he writes in Japanese, and then it gets translated to English, and then sometimes gets translated back to Japanese. And he did it on
like Google Translate things,
kind of like that
on YouTube.
So he did it on purpose, though, because he wanted to strip some of the formal literary sense out of writing. He didn't want it to sound that way. And so people started accusing him of like ruining serious, Japanese language. And he says, language, though, is tough and resilient, a tenacity backed up by a long history. Its autonomy can't be lost or seriously damaged, however roughly it is handled. And I thought, wow, that's a really interesting sentence.
Well, it is, considering how much language actually does evolve and how much it does. Some people would say it gets bastardized. To ever text your kids, like
but he says you can't lose language, like you can't lose English or Japanese.
I don't know if that's true. I mean, whatever. I see what he's saying, but I also know that kids have trouble reading Shakespeare and understanding what's happening.
He says also, and I think this sentence is endlessly fascinating. I would even say that the explorations into its toolness, toolness, may lead to the regeneration of the Japanese language.
Oh.
Meaning using language as a utility
Yeah.
might make the language better again.
Huh. That's interesting. I mean, it's debatable whether it'd be better. Like, I'm sure some people are purists and don't want change, but I think simpler is better. It's my editing philosophy anyway.
It's a good editing philosophy. Well, related to editing, this is what one conversation is about writing in quality. The Polish poet Zbigniew Hebert had this to say: to reach the source, you have to swim against the current. Only trash swims downstream.
Oh my God.
Only trash swims downstream.
I love it.
He
That's
said,
fun.
lines like this can really buck up your spirits. And I thought, wow. So anyway, that's
I love it.
a book about writing. The novelist.
So when are you going to write your book about writing?
Oh my gosh. I already did write a book about writing. It's called what's it called?
Oh, that's right.
Find Your Writing
Professional
Voice.
editor on that one.
Yeah.
Too.
Yeah. Find Your Writer's Voice.
I'm not going to write a book.
So.
Not about writing.
No. I read a lot of books about writing until I read Stephen King's book on writing, and I went, oh, well, that's what you need to know.
Yeah.
That's the best one.
It is the best one.
Although if you don't care much about his autobiography, you could skip the first half.
So this is a logistical question, but being chief of staff actually takes a lot of time. When are you going to write the book about being chief of staff while you're chief of staff? Or are you going to wait until you're no longer chief of staff to finish and release it?
No, I think I'll put it out. Well, timing wise, I'll put it out sort of near the end of my run as chief of staff, but that's just a timing intention. That means that I can be available to speak on it and consult on it and all that. What I don't have time for is like a book tour and all that stuff.
Yeah.
So I definitely can't do that, but I can definitely say, hey, look, it's Matt. I can definitely say that getting the book written is the easier part than getting it promoted. I shouldn't say easy, like whoopie-doo, writing's fun and easy, but
it is though for you.
Yeah, I
guess
like
for some people it is.
I write an essay almost every single day.
Really?
Yeah. So
on LinkedIn. What? About like maple syrup?
On LinkedIn. I wrote one about failure yesterday. And then I wrote a side note about there's this chocolate shop in town about 21 footsteps from your house. So
I love chocolate.
I wrote about that.
And that's not like a garden variety chocolate shop. It's really good.
Best writer in fiction and nonfiction. Ready, go.
Fiction, Milan Kundera, Czech author. Like Unbearable Lightness of Being. Just a lot of nuance in his stuff. I tend to like it. It makes you think. I'm not saying it always makes you happy, but it makes you think. And nonfiction, that's a tough one because I love your books, so I'm not going to suck up like that.
No.
But I do have quite a few of them.
That's true.
So yeah, and used to use them in my classes and stuff, like the impact equation. I have that one. Gosh, what other nonfiction authors? It's really hard to say. I read a lot more fiction than I read nonfiction. Yeah. I don't make a practice of reading business books unless I am teaching business or interviewing someone. So I would almost rather just pick two like fiction.
Yeah, pick another fiction author.
I've gotten really into indie horror lately. So I love Stephen King, obviously. But I've gotten to appreciate a lot of other perspectives, like First Nation horror authors, like Waubgeshig Rice, or Latina horror author V. Castro, who wrote the book Aliens Vasquez. But I just finished one. I can't remember her name. Kayla Cottingham wrote one. It's actually a young adult book, and it's called My Dearest Darkest. And I really enjoyed it, like surprisingly enjoyed it, because I mean, it's a young adult. I guess it's not unlike like Harry Potter, the later years. But I don't know. I didn't expect to like it as much as I did. So I wouldn't. Those are just like recent. I don't know if I have a favorite besides Stephen King, probably, which is everybody's favorite.
Yeah.
I mean, Daphne du Maurier. I've read a bunch of Daphne du Maurier fiction, like The King's General, Rebecca, like sort of like historical fiction, but not like her stuff's not based on famous people or anything. It's just whatever. There's cool period details in it. I do read historical fiction sometimes. I read a book about the personal librarian of J.P. Morgan.
Oh, yeah, right.
A Black woman who her mom decided actually that the kids would pass as white because the opportunities for them at the time would be better. It was not an easy decision, and it was interesting. So anyway, they wrote this book like from her perspective about her experience, like the stakes being so high. She was supporting her whole family as J.P. Morgan's personal librarian. So recommend that one too. Nothing to do with business at all.
Curiously, Bono's book is incredibly well written. Like, he's really good.
Did he write it though, or is there like a bunch of other co-authors on it?
That's a good
I always
question.
wonder about stuff. Like Priscilla Presley wrote a book, but there was like 11 people on the cover.
In that same vein, not my favorite, but in that same vein, Matthew McConaughey's Green Lights is remarkable, and the audio is much better.
It's
Matthew McConaughey.
I do love when the authors read their own books. Usually.
Usually. The points I give him for Green Lights is that he writes awful things that have happened to him and like stuff he surely doesn't want to talk much about. He covers it. And I was like, oh, that's pretty fun. Because it wasn't just like I'm really cool and gee whiz. There's a lot of his failures on the way to his successes. So.
Well, I do have a favorite nonfiction book, Alan Alda. What made me think of it was you mentioned Matthew McConaughey. So Alan Alda wrote a book called If I Understood You, Would I Have This Look on My Face? And it's all about communication. And it started with his experience at the dentist where they did a procedure and they didn't carefully explain it to him. And it caused like a muscle problem that made his mouth look like he was sneering kind of. And he's like, it's a problem. I'm an actor and stuff. So that's an issue. So anyway, he wrote a book about proper communication for like physicians and scientists and all types of people. But that's a good one. What's wrong?
That's a great choice. I like that choice.
Yeah, that was a really good one. I kept that one. Years after I interviewed him about it, I read it again. I don't always read them again. I read that one again.
Yeah, so, I don't know a favorite nonfiction book. I have a lot.
That isn't yours.
I have too many. Oh, that isn't mine?
Oh. Never mind.
I have too many. I always recommend, people ask me about book recommendations. I always give 3 that are kind of pat at this point. One of them is The Shipping News by Annie Proulx.
Oh.
And it was because it taught me brevity in writing to the point that it's not even actual sentences anymore. She'll say things like, Coyle felt cold. That's a sentence. And then like really cold. And that's a sentence. And I'm like, that's not a sentence.
Because your grammarian's coming out.
Yeah, so
your inner grammarian.
But it's great because it teaches you this whole other way to write. Business Strip Bare by Richard Branson, because it was the first business book I went, oh my gosh, that's my principle. That's my idea. I would do it that way. And I felt very seen. And then Ender's Game by Orson Scott Card.
Oh, that's a good one.
Not the movie.
Not the later books.
Yeah, definitely not any of the other books. But because change of perspective. The whole thing you learn in that book is that there's more than one perspective. So that's that. So, hey, you know what I just realized?
You need a person of the day.
Yeah.
Oh, and here's our person of the day. Kaboom!
I'm gonna go with our syrup maker.
That's just blatant.
Yeah,
Blatant letting somebody buy their way into person of the day.
I think so. It was
I
sponsored.
support it because I like maple syrup.
Person of the day today, sponsored by maple syrup. Go out and buy yourself a waffle.
And the letter F, which we give to the person who was supposed to come and then didn't.
Boob face head. That's all right. We made another episode of the Backpack Show.
You know, there was a book that was supposedly written about my Uncle Phil and his escapades
Oh my
when he
God.
was a musician. And I wanted to read it. And he was like, I'll give you the manuscript. And he never.
We can get John